"You've got about 15 minutes, I said. Bryce Caldwell blinked at me like I just told him his Tesla ran on wishes and LinkedIn posts. "Excuse me?" I slid my security badge across the conference table. It stopped right between his overpriced cold brew and the severance paperwork. 15 minutes until the wheels come off, maybe less. "Victor, I don't think—" "I'm not making threats, just stating facts." I stood up, smoothed down my shirt. Good luck finding my documentation. Then I walked out of that conference room for the last time. "My name's Victor Reynolds. I'm 52 years old, and I just got fired by a 27-year-old who married the CEO's daughter at a wellness retreat and thinks legacy infrastructure means anything built before he got his MBA. Let me back up and tell you how we got here. You can tell a company's real priorities by who gets the corner office and who gets the server room. At Eldridge Corporation, the server room smelled like burnt plastic and 14 years of deferred maintenance. The corner office smelled like expensive cologne and unearned confidence. I'd been keeping the digital backbone of this place alive since 2011. Senior Systems Architect was my title, but what I actually did was more like being an ER surgeon for dying code, the kind of work nobody notices until it stops happening. The trouble started when Bryce wheeled in his standing desk setup to the executive floor. Kid married the CEO's daughter after one weekend in Sedona doing hot yoga and drinking mushroom tea, and 3 months later, he's Chief Innovation Officer. 3 months. I'd spent longer than that fixing our payment processing system after a vendor update went sideways in 2019. Bryce was 27, wore a Patagonia vest every single day, and had AirPods permanently installed. Pretty sure he slept with them. He had an MBA from someplace impressive and exactly zero understanding of how anything actually worked under the hood. But he had opinions. Lots of them. His first all-hands meeting, he stood up there with his cold brew and started throwing around buzzwords like technical debt and legacy overhead and how we needed to move fast and break things. I sat in the back row, arms crossed, thinking about the 72-hour shift I'd pulled in 2022 when ransomware tried to take down our finance department. I'd stopped those things from breaking. He wanted to break them on purpose and call it innovation. "We're entering a bold new phase," Bryce announced, clicking through slides that looked like he'd stolen them from someone's Medium post. "Legacy infrastructure is holding us back. We need fresh approaches, modern thinking, and honestly, fewer people stuck in old ways of doing things." People shifted in their seats. I didn't move. I'd heard versions of this speech before, just different words. Old equals bad. Experience equals expensive. Nobody under 30 thinks they need the guy who remembers fixing Y2K bugs. He looked right at me during that last part. Direct eye contact, fewer people stuck in old ways. I held his gaze and smiled, the kind of smile you give someone when you know something they don't. What Bryce didn't know, couldn't know because he'd never bothered to ask, was that I'd built the automation scripts keeping our entire vendor management system running. Every night at 2 a.m., my code patched inconsistencies, caught billing errors before clients saw them, kept the whole thing from falling apart. I'd written it all back in 2013 after the third time someone's quick fix almost deleted our entire customer database. Those scripts were mine, legally mine. My contract was explicit about intellectual property. Anything I created on my own time using my own methods belonged to me. The company could license them, but only while I was actively employed and providing monthly maintenance updates. No employment, no maintenance, no license. I'd shown that contract to our lawyer when I signed it in 2011. He'd read it carefully, looked up at me and said, "Keep good records, Victor." I kept excellent records. Bryce kept talking about his vision. Cloud first, everything. AI-driven infrastructure, agile sprints, synergy. I stopped listening and started thinking about my daughter Katie's tuition payment due next month. She's 21, junior at State, majoring in biology. I thought about the health insurance covering her diabetes medication, about the pension that would max out in 3 more years when I hit 55 with full early retirement benefits. I'd been at this 14 years. I could make it 3 more. That's what I told myself. 2 weeks after that meeting, I got the calendar invite. Subject line, Quick Sync HR. No agenda, no context. Just a 4:30 p.m. slot on a Thursday afternoon. I'd watched this happen to other people over the years, the late-day meetings, the carefully neutral HR rep, the manila folder with severance terms. They never did it in the morning, too risky. Someone might make a scene, ruin everyone's productivity. Better to wait until the end of the day when people are tired, ready to go home, less likely to fight back. I showed up at 4:28 p.m., professional to the end. Bryce was there, sitting casual on the edge of the conference table with his leadership coach, some guy named Trevor who wore $300 designer sneakers and called himself a culture transformation specialist. Angela from HR sat in the corner, looking like she'd rather be literally anywhere else. She pushed a branded folder across the table toward me. "Victor," Bryce started, and I could tell he'd practiced this in the mirror. "You've been an important part of Eldridge's journey, really important, but we're restructuring to align with where the industry is heading. More agile, more collaborative, more forward-focused." I didn't blink, just waited. "We're reimagining certain legacy positions," he continued. Translation: "Old man, you're expensive and you make me look stupid when I suggest things that won't work. We think this is the right time for you to explore new opportunities that better match your experience level." Trevor nodded like Bryce had just solved world hunger. Angela slid the severance agreement forward. 3 months salary, Cobra health insurance for 18 months if you enroll within 60 days, and outplacement support services. I picked up the paper, scanned the legal terms. I used to audit our vendor contracts before Bryce decided that was bureaucratic waste. "Any questions?" Bryce asked. He was smiling, actually smiling like he'd done me a favor. That's when I said it. "You've got about 15 minutes. I didn't go home. Walked 2 blocks down to Murphy's Tap, this veterans bar where the owner knew to pour Maker's Mark without asking. Found my usual corner booth where I could still see the Eldridge building through the window. 15th floor, all lit up like nothing had changed. Phone went face down on the scarred wood table. No calls yet, no frantic texts. Just the low murmur of the TV over the bar and the crack of pool balls in the back room. Tommy Murphy, the owner, brought over the bourbon. Ex-Navy, ran AT systems on aircraft carriers before retiring to Maryland and opening this place. He was maybe 58, gray beard, steady hands from years of not panicking when things went sideways at sea. He set the glass down, looked at my face, looked at the phone, back at my face. "They finally do it?" he asked. "Yep." "How long you give them?" 15 minutes, maybe less. He pulled out the chair across from me, sat down with his own coffee. "You remember when I told you about Norfolk?" I did, but I let him tell it again. "Sometimes you need to hear you're not the only one." 2019, Tommy said. 22 years at Lockheed, systems engineer, clearance, the whole 9 yards. New VP comes in, Stanford MBA, couldn't tell a server from a coffee maker. Starts talking about optimizing headcount and right-sizing legacy positions. He took a sip of coffee. Fired me on a Thursday. By Monday, their entire classified network was down. Turns out I was the only one who knew the failover protocols. "They call you back?" "Oh yeah." Offered me contractor rates to fix it. I told them my consulting fee was 5 times my old salary, minimum 6-month contract paid up front. He smiled. They paid it. Took me 3 days to fix what they broke. Then I walked. "That's when you bought this place?" "That's when I bought this place. Best decision I ever made." He gestured around the bar. "No MBAs, no performance reviews. Just pour good drinks, listen to people's problems, go home when I want." My phone buzzed. Once, twice, started vibrating continuously. Tommy glanced at it. "That them?" "Yep. You gonna answer?" "Nope." He nodded, stood up. "You need anything? I'm at the bar." I picked up the bourbon, took a slow sip. The burn felt good, felt real. Here's what nobody tells you about being the person who holds everything together. You become invisible, not because you're bad at your job, but because you're too good at it. Things just work. Systems hum along, and people forget someone's making that happen. They forget until you stop. My scripts weren't complicated, just solid automation built on 14 years of watching things break. Every night at 2 a.m., they'd run through the vendor database, catch duplicate entries, flag expired contracts, reconcile invoice mismatches. Every morning at 6 a.m., they'd verify API connections, test failover systems, validate backup integrity. Boring work, critical work, the kind nobody notices until it doesn't happen. I'd tried explaining this to Bryce about 2 months back, showed him the dashboard, walked him through the error logs, demonstrated how one small failure could cascade into major problems. He'd listened for maybe 45 seconds before cutting me off. Right, but modern platforms have built-in redundancy, he'd said, not looking up from his phone. This kind of manual oversight is anti-agile. We need to trust the systems. The systems fail, I'd told him. That's why we have oversight. That's old thinking, Victor. We're moving toward autonomous infrastructure. I'd pulled up the logs from last year when our autonomous infrastructure went down for 14 hours, showed him how my backup systems kept customer operations running while everyone else panicked. He'd scrolled through maybe 3 lines. Exactly, he'd said. Single points of failure. That's what we need to eliminate. I was the single point of failure he wanted to eliminate. My phone lit up again. Angela from HR, then Darren from procurement, then a number I didn't recognize with a 202 area code, probably someone from corporate. I let them all ring. The thing about systems is they don't explode all at once. They degrade. Small failures cascade into bigger ones. It's like pulling cards from a house of cards. Nothing happens with the first few, then suddenly the whole thing collapses. You get warnings if you know what to listen for. They weren't listening. Text from Darren popped up on my screen. Vic, email system acting weird, messages bouncing. You know what's going on? I typed back, check the documentation. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, what documentation? I put the phone back down. See, there was documentation, 286 pages of it. Process flows, system diagrams, recovery procedures, emergency contacts, vendor information. I'd written it myself over the years, updated it quarterly, kept it current, stored it in the shared drive under a folder clearly labeled Critical Infrastructure by Reynolds. Bryce had that folder deleted 5 weeks ago during a storage optimization audit. Said it was legacy bloat taking up space. I'd objected in writing. He'd overruled me in an email that said, "We're moving toward cloud-based knowledge management. Static documents are a crutch." I'd kept my own copy, of course, on my personal laptop, which was currently in my F-150 parked outside. The TV over the bar flickered to the local business channel. A breaking news banner scrolled across the bottom. Eldridge Corporation stock drops 8% in after-hours trading amid reports of technical difficulties. Tommy glanced at the screen, then at me, raised an eyebrow, didn't say anything. My phone started ringing continuously now, different numbers cycling through. Same panic, different voices. Text from Angela. "Victor, please call me. We need to talk about transition procedures." Text from Bryce. "Hey, hope you're doing okay. Quick question. Where are the vendor API configs stored?" Then another from Bryce. "This is kind of urgent. Please respond when you can." Then, "Victor, I know we didn't end things great, but we really need your help here." I finished my bourbon, held up the empty glass toward Tommy. He brought the bottle over, poured 2 fingers. "Stock's down 8%, he said quietly. "Just getting started," I said. "You sabotage anything?" "Didn't touch a thing. Just stopped fixing it. There a difference?" I looked at him. Big difference. Sabotage is breaking something that works. This is just letting broken things stay broken. He thought about that, nodded slowly, walked back to the bar. Behind me, the TV anchor was talking. Sources inside the company report widespread system failures affecting multiple departments. I picked up my phone, scrolled through the messages. 17 now. The desperation was ramping up. My daughter had texted earlier before the meeting. "Good luck today, Dad. Love you." She didn't know I'd been fired. Didn't know her insulin coverage just became a problem. Didn't know I'd spent 3 years counting on a pension that just evaporated. But she'd know I didn't beg. Didn't crawl back. Didn't compromise who I was for people who never valued it. The phone buzzed again. CEO this time. The old man himself calling direct. I watched it ring through to voicemail. Tommy called from the bar. "Another?" I looked at my glass, still half full. Not yet. What happens now, I thought, is they learn what I was actually worth. The hard way. By 11 p.m., my phone had 63 unread messages. I'd stopped counting after 40. I drove home around midnight, left the phone in the truck, and slept better than I had in months. No 2 a.m. anxiety about whether the scripts were running. No 6 a.m. checks to make sure backups completed. Just solid, uninterrupted sleep. Woke up at 7 a.m. to find my phone had exploded overnight. 127 messages, 34 missed calls, 3 voicemails from numbers I didn't recognize. Made coffee. Strong, black, using the French press my daughter gave me for Christmas. Sat at the kitchen table and finally started reading. The first email had timestamps. That's what made it beautiful. 2:47 a.m. Automated email routing failed. Messages started bouncing. 3:12 a.m. Vendor database sync through errors. Duplicate entries multiplying. 3:45 a.m. API authentication started failing. Client portals locked out. 4:23 a.m. Billing system couldn't reconcile invoices. Processing stopped completely. 5:01 a.m. Backup verification failed. No one noticed because no one was watching. 6:30 a.m. First client called support. Couldn't access their account. 7:15 a.m. 15 more clients called. Same problem. By 8 a.m. when the East Coast business day started, Eldridge Corporation was dead in the water. I read through Angela's emails. Professional panic? The corporate kind where people use lots of words to say we're screwed. Victor, we understand you're no longer with the company, but we're experiencing critical system issues. Any guidance you could provide would be greatly appreciated. Then Darren's. Man, I don't know what's happening, but everything's broken. Email, vendors, billing, all of it. Can you at least point us in the right direction? Then one from someone named Jennifer in IT. Mr. Reynolds, I'm new on the infrastructure team. They're asking me to fix issues with systems I've never seen before. Is there any documentation I can reference? I deleted them all without responding. The news picked it up by 10 a.m. Eldridge Corporation shares fall 30% as widespread technical outage enters second day. Second day. They still thought this was temporary. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mr. Reynolds? Professional woman's voice. This is Patricia Keene from Stratum Systems. I hope this isn't a bad time. I've got time. We've been following your career for a while. We're impressed with your work. She paused. We'd like to make you an offer. Consulting contract, 6-month minimum, renewable. Double your previous salary, equity stake, full benefits, and most importantly, you'd be working with people who actually understand what you do. What's the catch? No catch. We need someone who builds things right the first time instead of breaking them and calling it innovation. We're tired of cleaning up after MBAs who think cloud means magic. I almost laughed. When do you need an answer? Take the weekend, think it over. But Victor, we've watched you hold that company together for years. We know what you're worth, even if they didn't. We hung up. I stared at my coffee. Still hot. 3 days went by. The messages kept coming, getting more desperate. Bryce tried calling from different numbers, left voicemails that went from casual to panicked. Hey man, no hard feelings, right? We just need some quick help here. Victor, please, the board is asking questions I can't answer. Victor, I'm sorry, okay? I made a mistake. Can we talk? I deleted every single one. On day 4, my daughter called. Dad, you okay? You haven't texted back. I'm fine, honey. Just dealing with some work stuff. What kind of work stuff? You sound weird. I thought about lying, thought about protecting her from it. But Katie was 21, not 12. She deserved the truth. They let me go on Thursday. Silence on the line. Then, they fired you? After 14 years? New management. They wanted younger, cheaper, more agile. I used air quotes she couldn't see. Dad, that's age discrimination. You could sue, maybe. Right now I'm just letting things play out. What does that mean? It means the company's having some technical problems without me there. Another pause. Good. I hope they crash and burn. That made me smile. How's school? School's fine. Are you going to be okay? What about insurance? My insulin, I've got it covered. Don't worry about that. I got a job offer yesterday. Better pay, better company. Really? That fast? Turns out experience is worth something to people who know what they're looking at. I'm proud of you, Dad. After we hung up, I sat there holding the phone. Proud of me? For what? Getting fired? But I knew what she meant. Proud I didn't beg, didn't compromise, didn't crawl back for scraps. Week 2, the lawsuit started. First was a mid-sized logistics company whose entire operation ran through Eldridge's platform. Their systems went down, shipments got lost, contracts got breached. They filed for $4.2 million in damages. Then 2 more clients, then 5. Then a class action from smaller vendors. By week 3, the SEC opened an investigation into whether Eldridge had properly disclosed technical vulnerabilities to shareholders. That's when the subpoena arrived at my house. Certified mail, thick envelope, law firm letterhead I recognized. They weren't suing me. They wanted me to testify. Mr. Reynolds, you are hereby requested to provide expert testimony in the matter of shareholders versus Eldridge Corporation. Your technical expertise and documentation of prior warnings are material to this case. I read it twice. They wanted everything. Email warnings, meeting notes, incident reports. Every time I'd flagged a risk and been overruled. Every time Bryce had called my concerns legacy thinking. I had all of it. Time-stamped, archived, backed up in 3 locations. The lawyer called that afternoon. Mr. Reynolds, I want to be clear, you're not in any legal trouble. We need you to explain in plain language what happened and why. They fired the person holding everything together, then acted surprised when it fell apart. Can you say that in a deposition? I can say it under oath. Good. We'll schedule it for 6 months out, give discovery time to develop. In the meantime, if Eldridge contacts you, don't engage. Forward everything to us. They've been contacting me for 2 weeks. I haven't responded once. He actually laughed. Perfect. Keep doing exactly that. I hung up and accepted Stratham's offer. The next morning, I drove to their office in Arlington. Real office, not some startup warehouse with ping-pong tables. The CTO, a guy named Richard, who was maybe 60 with gray hair and actual engineering credentials, sat down with me personally. Show me what you're thinking for our infrastructure redesign. I pulled up the notes I'd made over the weekend. Redundancy layers, security protocols, automated monitoring with human oversight, the stuff that actually works when you're not trying to be trendy. Richard listened, took actual notes, asked intelligent questions. This is solid, Victor. When can you start implementation? Give me 3 weeks to map all the dependencies. Take 4 if you need it. I'd rather have it done right than done fast. I sat back in the chair. Real ergonomic chair, not 15-year-old furniture. Window with natural light instead of fluorescent hell. You okay? Richard asked. Yeah, just not used to people trusting me to do my job. Get used to it. That's why we hired you. 6 months later, I sat in a deposition room that looked exactly like you'd expect. Long conference table, court reporter in the corner, lawyers in suits that cost more than my first car. They swore me in and started asking questions. The lead attorney was a woman named Sarah Mitchell, maybe 45, sharp eyes and sharper questions. She slid a stack of printed emails across the table. Mr. Reynolds, are these emails from you to Bryce Caldwell and other Eldridge management? I looked at them. My own words printed out, highlighted in yellow. Yes. Can you read the subject line of the first one? Warning. Vendor contract expirations Q2 2024. And the date? March 15th, 2024. What was the response to this warning? I flipped to the reply. Bryce wrote back, "Thanks for the flag. We're moving to automated contract management soon, so this won't be an issue going forward." Did they implement automated contract management? No. What happened instead? 3 vendor contracts expired. 2 of them locked Eldridge out of critical services, cost about $180,000 in emergency reactivation fees. Sarah pulled out another document. This is an internal Slack message from Mr. Caldwell dated April 8th, 2024. Can you read what he wrote? I read it silently first, then out loud. Victor's paranoid about compliance stuff. Old school thinking. We need to move faster than his comfort level allows. How did you respond to this? I didn't. It wasn't directed at me. I saw it later when IT pulled the message logs for this lawsuit. Mr. Reynolds, in your 14 years at Eldridge, how many critical system failures did you prevent? I thought about it. I stopped tracking after about 50. Could be 100, could be more. Can you give us an example? September 2022. Ransomware attack targeted our finance department. I caught the signature in the logs at 3 a.m., quarantined the infected systems before it spread. Legal never even heard the word malware because we stopped it that early. Did you receive recognition for this? Got an email from my manager saying good catch. Bonus? Promotion? No. Sarah looked at the other lawyers, then back at me. Mr. Reynolds, can you explain in simple terms what your automation scripts actually did? I spent 20 minutes walking them through it. How the scripts ran every night, checking thousands of data points. How they caught duplicate vendor entries before they created billing errors. How they verified backup integrity so we'd actually have data if something went wrong. how they monitored API connections and tested failover systems. These scripts, who owned them? I did. My employment contract was explicit. Anything I created on my own time using my own methods belonged to me. The company could license them while I was employed and providing monthly maintenance. Did Eldridge pay you separately for these scripts? No. The license was part of my employment agreement, so when they terminated your employment, the license terminated. That's standard contract law. Mr. Caldwell has stated in his deposition that you sabotaged the systems. How do you respond? I looked directly at the camera recording this. I didn't touch anything. I revoked access to tools I owned when the licensing agreement ended. That's not sabotage, that's property rights. Did you warn them this would happen? I told Bryce directly in the termination meeting that systems would fail without the scripts. He didn't believe me. Why not? Because he didn't understand what the scripts did. He never asked. He just knew they were old code, and old meant bad in his mind. Sarah smiled slightly. One final question. Knowing what you know now, would you have done anything differently? I thought about that. Really thought about it. I would have left 2 years earlier. The deposition wrapped up around 4 p.m. I drove back to Stratham's office in Arlington, got there just as the late afternoon sun was hitting the windows. I'd been working there for 6 months now. Real work, the kind where people listen when you explain why something's a bad idea. The kind where you build things right instead of fast. My current project was redesigning their entire backup infrastructure. Not sexy work. Nobody writes blog posts about backup systems. But when disaster hits, backups are the difference between inconvenience and bankruptcy. Richard stopped by my desk around 5 p.m. How'd it go? Fine. Answered their questions. You okay? Yeah. Just strange, watching your old company burn down in legal documents. He pulled up a chair. You know what I learned in 35 years of doing this? Companies that don't value their infrastructure don't value anything. They're just waiting to fail. They just don't know it yet. Eldridge figured it out. Eldridge is going to pay about $15 million in settlements, last I heard, plus legal fees, plus the SEC investigation. He shook his head. All because some kid thought experience was a liability. My phone buzzed. Text from Katie. How'd the lawyer thing go? I typed back. Good. Home for dinner around 6. Making pasta. The good kind, not the college kind. That made me smile. Katie had moved back home after the whole Eldridge situation. Saved money, kept her close, gave us time we hadn't had since she was in high school. She'd graduate next spring. Already had 2 job offers lined up. Your daughter doing okay? Richard asked. Yeah? She's good. Tough kid. She gets that from you. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. Go home, Victor. It's Friday. Project can wait until Monday. Packed up my laptop, drove home through Arlington traffic, got there just as Katie was draining pasta in the kitchen. Dad, you're not going to believe this. She held up her phone. LinkedIn is wild right now. What happened? Bryce Caldwell posted something. She showed me the screen. I read it. Some long post about learning from failure and the importance of respecting institutional knowledge and humility in leadership. Classic corporate repentance, probably written by a PR firm. The comments were brutal. Didn't you fire the guy with all the institutional knowledge? This you? With a link to an article about the Eldridge collapse? Respect is cheap when you're desperate. Katie was grinning. He's getting destroyed. Good, I said. Then I put my phone in the drawer. What kind of pasta? Over dinner, Katie told me about her microbiology final, about the lab position she'd been offered for next semester, about her friend's drama with a roommate. Normal stuff. Good stuff. I told her about the deposition, about how strange it felt to sit in a room full of lawyers talking about my old job like it was ancient history. You miss it? She asked. The work? Sometimes. The people? No. You like Stratham better? Stratham actually listens when I talk. That's worth more than you'd think. After dinner, I sat on the back porch with a maker's mark, not celebrating anything, just unwinding. My neighbor, retired Marine named Bill, wandered over with his own drink. He was maybe 62, gray hair and a buzz cut, worked in military logistics before retiring. Heard you had depositions today. News travels fast. Small neighborhood. He pulled up a chair. How'd it go? They asked questions. I answered them. Pretty straightforward. Your old company still imploding? slowly. Lawsuit's going to take another year, probably. He nodded, sipped his whiskey. You know what they say. Best revenge is living well. I thought about that. Thought about the last 6 months, better job, better pay, respect, time with my daughter, sleep at night without worrying about systems failing. I think the best revenge, I said, is just letting people fail on their own terms. I didn't sabotage anything, just stopped saving them from themselves. There a difference? Big difference. One makes you the villain, the other just makes you absent. Bill raised his glass. I'll drink to that. We sat there in the quiet, watching the sun set over the neighborhood. My phone was inside in the drawer. No emergency alerts, no panicked messages, no systems depending on me to keep them alive. Just peace. 3 months later, Eldridge settled all the lawsuits, $18.7 million total. The CEO retired. Bryce quietly left the company, his LinkedIn now describing him as an independent consultant, which is code for unemployed. I never reached out, never gloated, never even checked their website. I was too busy building something that actually worked. That's the thing they never tell you about revenge. The loud kind, the public kind, that's just theater. The real kind, the kind that lasts, is when you walk away and build something better. When you prove that what they threw away was valuable, just not to them. 14 years I gave that company. They threw it away in 15 minutes. I got it back in 6 months. That's not revenge. That's just math.